Abidemi Taiwo, and I am the host and producer of On the Couch with Abby. 2020 was a defining year for us all, and one that will go down in history as one of the most important years of our lives. In 2020, we saw the effect of the global pandemic, COVID-19, a global downturn, global lockdown, and many more. It was a year that taught us many lessons about humanity, and we defined how we look at our role in this world. We witnessed the birth of social movements like Black Lives Matter and SARS, and here in Ireland, Justice for George. Also in 2020, I turned 30, a big milestone into adulthood. A moment which was meant to be filled with gratitude turned into a heartfelt panic and fear. I was full of anxiety, and I strongly felt that I had not met the expectation that was set for me by the society, especially as a woman of African root. In the past couple of years, I have learned and unlearned a lot about myself, my journey, my identity, my values, and my mindset. And I can certainly tell you that there has been a shift in my thinking. I am more confident in myself, in my identity, and on my way to finding my God-given purpose. Becoming 30 is a special series that was put together back in 2020 that highlights real, authentic stories as we undergo a monumental change in our lives. A time full of reflection towards building a better future. I would like to help you to navigate this new world and give you the most authentic insight into what life is like at becoming 30. So whether you turned 30 2 years ago, like me, 5 years ago, or you're about to become 30 this year, next year, or whatever years is to come, this conversation is going to be as valid as they were when we filmed it. This is Becoming 30. Hi, Uche. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you.
Nice to have you on Becoming 30. I have Uche Uwechue, a 26-year-old guy who's here with me. How are you today?
Yeah, good, thank you. And yourself?
I'm all right. I'm very well, thank you. I've been speaking to a lot of people about the experience of becoming 30. And of course, I know yourself. I've also had young people, people who are not even up to 30 that's been on this platform. So it's been great really trying to, listening to people's views and their experience and what their expectations are. So, with men comes with changes, with women comes its own changes when, turning, getting up to that milestone of becoming 30. So what would you say is something that you're looking forward to when you turn 30?
Yeah, for me, it would be, I look forward to essentially it'd be looking back. It'll be looking in hindsight. So when I reach 30, and 30 is a major milestone for anybody, I'd love to look back and thank the 26-year-old Uche, the 25-year-old Uche, and say, you know what, uh, younger Uche, thank you for the sacrifices because, you've enabled the 30-year-old Uche to enjoy things that, wouldn't have happened if I didn't, sow the seeds. And I think that's important, because I want to get to a place when I'm 30 where it's like, I've paid the price for the stuff I need to, I've gone through the process. I didn't skip any classes essentially. I've sold, and at 30, at that point, I'd hope to reap the rewards, For me, 20 is about education, make the mistakes, learn, be adventurous because you're a bit free. So there's not a whole lot of responsibilities. And you have a lot of energy. And I think time subconsciously, so I do look forward to 30, and see the stuff that I have sold because essentially my 20s I've dedicated and I've dedicated to sowing, into time.
Mm. Great
Yeah.
stuff. Thanks for that, Uche. I know you're a very hardworking guy. You're an intelligent young man. How do you think you've gotten to where you are now as a 26-year-old man?
Yeah. Thanks. So for me, it definitely be sacrifices, sacrifices and mindset. So when I say sacrifices, I think it's important to understand that, with anything we look to achieve in life, a lot of the times there's sacrifices involved. And I always like to use the analogy of, you go to a bid essentially, everybody's going to want to, they say there's an ornament that everybody wants, but not everybody's going to pay the final price. And the people who want it the most, or the person who wants the most, will pay for that essentially. And most
Mm,
of the times it comes out of sacrifice. Maybe you've saved a lot. Maybe, you've put away a lot of money just to purchase this one thing. And I think
mm,
one of the things that's helped me is sacrifice. And, when I look at any great man, I study a lot of CEOs, people who have achieved a lot of it comes from sacrifice,
mm,
and it's not just making one sacrifice. There's a saying, what got you here isn't going to get you there. So I think it's important that people realize, sacrifice is quite important. And I feel it's played a lot for me. Mindset number two, because, we live in a world where there's so much going on. I think, with this COVID lockdown, it's the first time we've experienced a full digital, era where everything's online. People are graduating online. It's not a case where you can go to the hospital as quickly. You have to go through an online process.
yeah.
And with that, it has its pros, but also has its shortcomings,
Mm,
because we see a lot. People are living well, and sometimes that can create a false image that you may be behind. Some of it is not exactly true. We live in a culture where a lot of young people today are pretentious, so they're shown more than they actually are. And you
mm,
yourself, you might sit down and be like, actually, where am I? But having the right mindset, one day your day will come. I believe in God, and my faith is quite important to me. And I believe that if I keep working at it, if I keep focused, some days, although I see my friends in like massive cars and nice cars, I still walk and I say, God, I even thank you.
mm,
It's those type of days, you have the right mindset. I'm not there yet, but God, I thank you. You're not eating at the nicest places, you don't have everything, but still, God, I thank you. So it's important. And I like to reference, the Bible, where the children of Israelites were leaving the bondage land, a journey, and that was meant to take 11 days, took about 30 years,
yes.
because they were
Mm,
mumbling and complaining.
mm,
And it's important because they say, it's the battle of the mind. Essentially,
mm.
thing starts from the mind. Your results are as a result of your actions, and your actions are usually led, what's in your mind. So it's important that, we embrace the correct mindset, positive, thankful, full of praise. And yeah.
Thanks so much for that, Uche. You mentioned sacrifice and mindset. It's so important, which brings me now to my next question. Was while I was preparing for this, I actually realized there's something called quarter life crisis. I mean, I'm very much aware of midlife crisis. So I was like, okay, what is this about? Quarter life crisis is actually defined as a period in one's life when you're in your mid 20s, your late, to your early 30s, where there's, you start feeling some sense of insecurity, some sense of doubt. That's when comparison comes in to it as well in regards to your finances, your career, relationship. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I have. I wouldn't have said I experienced it at the quarter stage of my life, but experienced it quite early. That's because I moved from Dublin to London when I was
Mm,
21. So
mm,
essentially, I got a full experience of life, living my own, my career, different jobs, etc. So I experienced that early because, like I said, you do tend to see a lot. And sometimes at some point, being young, you may be a little naive. You start to question, where am I going? Jack has done this. What am I doing? Jack has attained this and I haven't done any of that. So essentially you start to get confused. And when you get overwhelmed, it becomes a crisis. Like, I don't know anymore. You may
mm,
be overwhelmed with a lot. So I have experienced it quite early, and it's a thing that I think a lot of people will experience. But sometimes, at the end of these issues, you start to experience what really matters, and that's where you start to realize purpose. So sometimes it is necessary. I believe sometimes God brings in a storm before he shows you the rainbow, essentially. So
mm.
yeah.
Okay.
You did mention very briefly about purpose, and I know you're very big on purpose. Do you feel like you found your purpose?
It's something that I feel like I'm continuously working on. I believe everybody has a purpose, and I feel mine is like in the house of God essentially, and for making impact in this world. Every when I say everybody has a purpose, I believe there's something that people have said to you or they've seen you that like
Mm,
there's something about you or you yourself you can do something that nobody else can do freely,
mm,
you're getting paid or not, this is something you're passionate about. Or, for me, I hate, as much as I say there's only so much impact I can make, but I hate, seeing like my peers, suffering essentially in Nigeria, or people who are impoverished. And, that kind of touches me. And I have been working on that, where I've been trying to make impact back home in Nigeria and over here. So for other people might be singing, they see that, you're creative, you're a great singer, you're creative.
mm,
Everybody has a purpose, and it's important that, we realize that. I've studied many of men who've, they've sacrificed their birthdays until they found their purpose and they were working
mm,
on it. They didn't really celebrate their birthday. So some people have really, really taken this to the
mm,
zenith of their life, essentially, to find a purpose, because the quicker you find it, it means that it enables you to start working on it early.
mm,
Because essentially everything there's a price to pay. That you go through your failures, you just don't show up. Kevin Hart didn't show up. I heard that, to get Kevin Hart to perform, it cost him $3 million for one night. He didn't just show up on stage. He went through a process. So it's important that we realize there's a process to it. God may give you the destination, but He's not going to give you the journey. When you look at the great
mm,
Oprah Winfrey, she was fired from her job before she realized, oh, I can actually start my own. So it's
mm.
important that we start to realize this early.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And it's amazing how so many people have mentioned Oprah, used Oprah Winfrey as an example, and
Mm.
also talked about the process. So when talking about the process, Uche, you're not the regular sort of 26-year-old guy out there that's like out drinking every weekend.
Mm.
So how did you get to be this type of person?
Yeah, I feel I'm not even at my final form, or at the final stage. I feel there's still a lot of growth to do, but essentially I feel with purpose and anything you want to achieve, there's different attributes needed, and one of them is focus. For anybody who's looking to achieve anything or to be great, to surpass being mediocre, we all admire the likes Anthony Joshua, the great
Mm,
footballers, but they all have something in common. That's discipline. Really and truly, it's hard to see that, people made sacrifices. It's hard to see people's scars. We don't see that really until we look back in hindsight and we see what they've gone through.
absolutely.
I feel it's helped me a lot in terms of, appreciating other people, what they've achieved. Until you really start to go for purpose, you won't appreciate what other people are doing. Even, you being here, I believe there's a practice that comes with public speaking, or even just organizing these things. There's characteristics, there's engagement, there's networking.
Mm,
And that's where, like, I salute people who are on that journey. They're working at it, every single day. They call it the compound effect. You're not looking for one massive, okay, here I am on stage. It doesn't happen like that. It's daily,
if
daily.
only.
Yeah, the Eiffel Tower wasn't built overnight. It was daily. So for me, it's, working on it, study other people, have the right mindset, learn from people, learn from mentors. They say if you want to move fast, do it alone. But if you want to move further, do it together, essentially. No man can do it by themselves. And I think, when I did speak earlier about having the right mindset, being appreciative, because as much as our parents have laid a foundation, without them we would probably, a lot of us wouldn't be here where we are, or even the friends, the family, the churches, whoever, your community. I feel, a major role has been from the people around us, essentially, wherever, it just takes one person to say, oh yeah, you could be doing this, or I can help you here. So
Hmm.
people have really played a big impact. And as well as, just like I said, realizing your purpose, and being ready to pay the price for it. I believe, everybody makes mistakes. It's okay. They say success is failure. It's being able to move from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm. So I think it's something that we need to realize. We all make mistakes, but all it takes is one day, or as I say, all it takes is one yes. You apply for a million applications, you know, all of them rejected apart from one. It just takes one yes. So, you know, for me, it's the process, you know, appreciating the process, the people around you, and, you know, willing to work at it and discipline and focus.
Mm. Wow. Thank you so much for that nugget. I've actually learned a lot within from that answer. So, money isn't everything, but it will buy you choices. So, in regards to, I know you've spoken to me a lot about investment and things like that. You actually just purchased your own property, just purchased the property. You just, owned your first property. So, if you've achieved this at the age of 26, and congratulations to that,
Thank
by
you.
um, what is that sort of biggest thing that you're looking forward to doing before you turn 30?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, it's like, you know, I think I've always had a long-term view, you know, so 30 at that point, I may have kids by then or may look to settle down. And essentially, you know, like I said, I reverence a lot from the Bible, and the Bible says, you know, it's all about building a good foundation on the rock. And, you know, I want to get to 30 where I have a good foundation, essentially, and not just
Mm,
a foundation, but I can, you know, keep going from that. You know, I think one thing is I've got the property now is, you know, to clear my mindset and think, you know, what's next again, because it's all about, you know, keep setting targets and goals. I think a lot of people give out to me and saying like, Uche, you know, you seems like you work hard, you're very focused, etc. I do take time out, you know, to enjoy. I go on holidays. I was meant to take my parents on holidays this year, but unfortunately COVID happened.
okay. Mm,
You know, but in terms of, you know, investments, I think it's important to, you know, learn about it early. There's so many resources today. We have it on, you know, there's books on Amazon if you want to learn about property. That's how I learned about it. You know, there
mm,
was no like aunties or uncles. It's just I learned about it, started asking the right questions, you know, every day. And then one day it will happen. You know, for in terms of investments, I believe it's key because like you said, you know, money may not buy you happiness, but it'll definitely buy you choices. You
mm,
know, if we take property for example, some people, if you invest in the right property, two, three, or four, essentially you wouldn't have to work because they could all yield you nearly 5 grand a month.
yeah.
You know, so it's and as well, not just, you know, money wise, but something for our kids, you know, to leave behind,
Mm-hmm.
you know, or something for them, you know,
Legacy.
a legacy is exactly. So it is an asset that, you know, they can financially use because I agree, you know, money isn't everything, but it does play a major role. You know, you can't really work if there's no food on the table. So it's important not just to make money, but to invest back in it as well. You know, there's different things out there. Not only can you buy property, you can invest in real estate essentially. So if there's a massive conglomerate who build property, you could actually give them money, and when they've built it, they'll sell it and they can give you profit as well. So you get your money out. So there's different schemes available. You know,
Mm,
I think people think it's just property, which is good. But
mm,
you can also look for other things. So I know somebody who's gone into property development. So it's one thing to buy it, it's another thing to build it. So, you know, there's different things, but I definitely feel it's important that we learn about financial investments because, you know, at some point we're going to want to retire, and
mm-hmm.
depending on how we've invested financially will determine when we can retire. I believe in the UK the retirement age is 65, but
Mm-hmm.
most people reach 65 and they don't retire essentially because
Oh.
there is no investments.
And
There's
I
nothing
think it's
to go back.
increased up now to 67.
Yeah, and what the government pays is pretty much nothing. So it's important that if we're young, you know, I think it's right that we learn about this quite early and try to set ourselves, you know, a good foundation. And some of us even freedom by the time we get to that age where we can focus on giving back, doing the things we love, etc.
Exactly, because I mean, this is something they don't teach us in school, but now we don't exactly have that excuse. There's so much resources, as you said,
Yeah.
online that you could avail of.
Mm.
Right, okay. So going forward, it's great and fantastic that you've achieved all those things at this young age. So what next in regards to relationships? Do you feel some sort of pressure? Are you getting pressure from home, in regards to how you would move forward,
Yeah.
really?
Sure. So yeah, definitely I feel this pressure kicking in from parents. They're always quite interested, especially in my culture. You know, it's one thing to graduate, get your master's, do whatever business, but settling down is important because it gives you focus as well. You know, it's one thing to be in different relationships, etc. But settling down, you know, you can just focus on one person, which is important. There's a lot of pressure around that, but it's okay. You know, we have these discussions. I'm good at deflecting it. But I
Mhm.
feel it would be something on the cards in the future. So I definitely look forward to that part.
It is all well and good, Uche, that you've bought your first, property. But what advice would you have for, people in their 20s or even in their 30s that are looking to, obtain their first property as well? How
Yeah.
did you achieve that target in especially in the economic um, um, times that we're in at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So for me, you know, like I said, it's usually a process, and these process it's kind of long term. So I set the goal about 2 years ago that okay, I think now's a good time. And you know, by the time you set targets, you know, you go speak to a financial advisor, how much can I borrow? And they'll tell you, you know, you're not even you haven't met the affordability requirement. And it's okay, that's fine. You know, you can learn and then you can go back and then you can start making conscious decisions on the type of job
Mm,
you need, the type of salary you need, you know, that
mm,
can enable you to do this. You can avail of, like I said, there's different books out there, information that you can use essentially. So I think, you know, it's important that you realize, you know, when you're maybe in your 20s, you can ask the questions, you know, if you've heard of people or moms and dads, you know, how do you do this? Essentially, I think understanding why, I think is the first question, why you want a property. The next one is like, how do you actually do it? You know, I would say, you know, like I said, resources, speak to a mortgage broker. They could give you this information early. Although
yeah.
I bought at 26, I asked these questions at 23. You
Mm,
know, so I bought it in the UK here. I was asking questions in Ireland. I rung up a mortgage broker. This is how much I make. You know, what can I afford in Ireland? You know, so you
mm,
can weigh up your options, and that means you can start to work towards okay, although I can't afford a dream property I want now, I can figure out how to get it. So you can either, when you do settle down, you can, okay, this person makes X amount and he makes Y amount. That means we can get it together, you know, and you can
mm,
start saving towards that. So as well, for young people, it's important to understand that you have a credit score. The credit score is what the banks use to essentially assess your eligibility for obtaining a loan and being able to pay it back.
mm,
So when you have adverse credits on your credit account, essentially it means that you know you may not be able to avail of a mortgage because a mortgage is a massive credit that you
mm-hmm.
you taking from the bank to pay your mortgage off. So it's important to watch your spending because the banks will go through your bank statements. They want to know that okay, you have the money, but can you actually afford it? You know, how's your spending been? Has it been like over the past year or so? So those kind of things.
Great stuff. Thank you. Thank you so much, Uche. Uche. Did I just say Uche? Thank you so much, Uche, for sharing from your wealth of knowledge. Thank you for that.
No problem.
Look forward to hearing more amazing things from you.
No problem.